I just need to tell the person that this is the right thing to do, and I'll go to any means possible to let them know, even if that means being offensive or mean or an asshole. And that's not okay. For those of you who've been Christian for any length of time, you know that there's a difference between what the church says it believes and what people actually choose to believe. There's incidents all across church history of people deviating from the very basics of our faith, as well as the more auxiliary beliefs, and that leading to schism, division, and even war. And today I'm going to be discussing, as a Roman Catholic, but this can apply to any Christian denomination, how to deal with clergy, how to deal with laity even, who do not believe what your church believes. So let's get into it. For context, this is something I've been personally dealing with over the past year and a half or so. And it all started when I first came to this new parish that I'm a part of. And one of the traditions that my church has as Catholics is that we kneel after the Lamb of God, you take away the sins of the world, have mercy on us. It ends up being that this church decides to stand. And it felt weird. It felt a little stilted and off-putting. And so I just decided to stay kneeling. And a little bit later in that school semester, because it was a Newman Center parish, the priest came up to me and said to no longer kneel, but to stand in solidarity with the rest of the people in the church. Again, it still didn't feel right to me, but I didn't want to challenge him. I was a recent convert from that previous spring, and so I just wanted to do the right thing. It rose in severity as soon as not only was those minor traditions becoming challenged and overturned, but the more serious and critical faith traditions truly like trying to be overthrown, usurped, you name it. This came at what was called a search retreat. Now, search retreats, if you aren't familiar, are these weekend-long retreats. They're fantastic. It's when people can really open up and be themselves and talk about spiritual things without feeling ostracized or neglected. It's what forms the basis of a lot of friendships in this community, and I have the utmost respect for it. I've even served on the ministry team for these retreats. What my pastor says on the podium during Mass on that weekend retreat is just flat out wrong. And here's what it is. He said repeatedly that, well,
even if you're not Catholic, you can come up and receive Jesus in the body and blood, soul, and divinity if you believe that is the case. There's exceptions in our church in which you can do that. Tonight is one of them.
Now, for those of you who are Catholic, and this is what this channel is mainly geared towards, but to any Christian who is on here, and thank you for joining on, this is a severe violation of what we believe as Catholics. If you are not Catholic and maybe even want to become Catholic, but let's say you don't know what all we believe in as far as like Mary was immaculately conceived, like she doesn't have sin, and that's how she was able to bear Jesus as a virgin. Or, for example, that the church doesn't think that there's such a thing as same-sex marriage, or that a man can become a woman and vice versa. There is a lot that goes into why we believe what we believe, and that's a totally different video. But regardless, if you don't have a subscription to all of those things, if you don't truly assent to that faith, then it doesn't make sense why you should receive a communion of being in community with other people in the church by receiving the Eucharist. And so I took issue with that. And after a couple of semesters of, again, just feeling like, I shouldn't say anything, I shouldn't push the envelope, so to speak, I decided to confront my pastor about this. And he got a bit upset with me. I'll be honest, I wasn't the most prudent in how I said things. And I really wasn't doing a good job of praying beforehand and asking to have a spirit of charity and love rather than of division and resentment. Obviously, nothing has changed at this point. And the question still remains, what can we do as Catholics specifically, but Christians generally, to lovingly challenge those in authority in our churches? And I think part of that answer really comes down to what I already mentioned was love. We can't have any sort of good fruits in our lives, whether it's our talents, our gifts, our ministry and vocations. None of that comes to good fruits if they're not rooted in love. And I need to learn this lesson continually every single day because I have this tendency to be that very logical, straight to the point. I just need to tell the person that this is the right thing to do. And I'll go to any means possible to let them know, even if that means being offensive or mean or an asshole. And that's not okay, because it is against what we believe that we have to be both kind, loving, and truthful in how we say things. If you really want change to happen in your church for orthodoxy, for the unity of the church that you belong to, you have to begin with a spirit of charity, a spirit of like, we're in the same team here. We both want this church to grow and be better. And so here's where we just don't see eye to eye in the specifics in the pastoral ministry, in the specifics of catechesis, a fancy word for teaching ministry. All of that has huge importance in any kind of conversation you'll have with a priest. In my example, I went over to the priest after a long amount of just asking God, okay, God, let your Holy Spirit come into this conversation. Even though we're imperfect people, we're trying to do right by you, both of us in our own way. Please, Lord, help us see eye to eye and to come away feeling better than when we came in. And that's exactly what happened in that particular instance. And this was long after any of those events during search transpired. But regardless, it was so important that we did that, because now me and that pastor are on a better footing now, even if it's not rock solid. And so I feel like going forward, I have to always have that spirit of prayer. And so that's one thing I would recommend to anybody who is willing and feels compelled to talk to their priest, their pastor, their bishop about what's going on at church. The second thing I want to point out too is that you shouldn't feel like you're alone in this. Likely, if you're seeing something that's not being taught in the correct nature or way, you're not the only one. You have friends within your church. They're upright people. They're just trying to do their best thing, just as you are. Then talk to them. Say, hey, I'm noticing this is going on. Am I crazy, or is this something that is really concerning? And if you have a number of people who are agreeing with you, but like you are not willing to say anything, at least not yet, that's the beginning of a more fruitful discourse, not only with your pastor individually, because now you know more context from people who have seen different angles of the same sphere, so to speak, but also now you're able to, if you need to appeal it, you have other people who can witness and can be on your side in that fight for the truth. And thirdly is that pastor, that priest, that bishop, whoever is going to be obstinate. They're not going to change what they think. They may even dig in their heels and do something even more egregious the next time. And at that point, you have a couple options. One, you could get really mad and resentful and angry, and you might leave that church or might leave altogether. And obviously, that's not what we want. We want to be loving regardless of what ends up happening. Jesus calls us to love our enemies, even if they're the most brutal kind, the ones that would kill us for what we think and say and believe. The goal then is to accept, to have some lamentation, one that nothing's going to be done, at least for now, and to really, again, to ask God for them to have a change of heart, whoever it is. That's all we can do at that point. And as a Catholic, the Eucharist are so near and dear to me that I would go to any length to protect them and defend them. And maybe that means that's a call to a deeper vocation, one that involves total sacrifice and taking a vow of like poverty, obedience, and chastity. So then I'm part of a religious order or of even the priesthood. Right now, I'm still a layperson. I'm still very young in my Christian faith. I've been born again by the grace of God, and I'm just grateful for what I do have right now. And so with that being said, if there's nothing else that I can do in this situation, I have to pray about it and just ask God for his will to be done, and that I can move forward and do the best that I can in peace with where the situation has led to so far. And so if you're struggling with this sort of thing, if you're having conversations and it feels like they're leading to nowhere, it's like an immovable object hitting an unstoppable force, tell me in the comments about what's going on. And I'd love to hear your input because it's an ongoing situation. I really appreciate people who are able to stick up for the truth, even if it's difficult, even if they might be persecuted in little and big ways alike. And so I want to hear what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching to the end of this video. It was a very difficult topic to discuss, but I'm glad that we were able to commune together and to begin to unpack some of these more difficult issues in the Christian life. Always be sure to like, subscribe, turn on a notification bell, and leave a comment if you feel like that this is something you connected with. This is a beautiful faith. This is the beginning of something new in your life. Ask God every day for that chance. Peace out, guys.